Okay, for the last image in this section, we're going to be creating a web graphic using blending modes, layer masks, and some transparency effects. So, you've got this video, you can watch it, you can fast forward it, you can stop to see exactly how to do what I'm going to be asking you to do. So, let's get started. We'll go ahead and open that final image, number 606 concrete, and it's just an image of somebody's feet looking down at some concrete. I'm gonna go ahead and double click the hand and bring that up so that I can see everything. It fills the frame on my Photoshop area. Now, you need to find a quote, some short quote that you can place in this area, probably about this middle square, that so it can't be a very long quote because it needs to be big text for us to be able to see it. So don't pick the Gettysburg Address, that's too long. Something really short to the point. You need to know who the author of that quote is, and we're going to place that here and make it look as though it's been either spray painted or stenciled onto the concrete using a blending mode on that layer. But first off, you need to get an image because we're also going to add an image and mask off the background of that image that relates to the quote. So, whatever it is that your quote is about, you're going to find an image and mask it inside of this image. So, to do that, if you'll go to Blackboard, if you don't have an image about the quote, you can go to this under Assignment 8, combining the images. You'll see under the section 2, do it, the free images for class use. I've got a couple of links to places. I really like Pexels. If I go here, I know my quote is about a flower, so I'm going to look for a purple flower. As you can see, I already searched for that. And these images come up. There's all kinds of images of purple flowers. I know what I want is something looking straight on like this. So I'm gonna choose this one, and I'm gonna hit free download. Uh, it downloads it to my browser, and I am going to take that and save it to my Photoshop '06 folder. So I'm going to right click, hit save as. As you can see, it's already there. So I can save over it again. I'm going to call it something new, purple flower. I'm going to hit save. Yes, I know it's there, but I'm going to save it there again. And you can see it downloaded to the folder. Now, I'm going to come here and I'm going to place an embedded file. And I'm going to navigate again to that purple flower I just put in the folder. And I'm going to open it in the other document. So I know I want it bigger than this, so I'm going to go ahead from the very start and transform this. Now, remember, to keep it in proportion, you hold down the Shift key while you're transforming. Otherwise, you get a tall, skinny flower or a short, fat flower. I want a, a flower that's in proportion to its width and height. So now I can either hit enter or click the check marks to add that to my image. I've got it not where I want it, but I've got it in the middle here so I can work on it and add this layer mask. To add a mask, remember you have to select off the area that you want to see, and everything outside of the marching ants you can mask away. So I'm going to use a quick selection tool, and I'm just going to begin to click into this image and select those petals of the flower. It doesn't take long because it's a pretty easy image. And then I come down here to the bottom right and I click the mask button on the layers palette. Add layer mask. And it masks away all the other pixels of that image. Now, it looks pretty good to me. I can even zoom in here and see it. I do have a little bit of dark line around the outside. That's okay for what I'm going to do because I'm going to add a drop shadow. But if it's not okay, then I could use the select and mask option and shift this edge in to get away from that little uh, shadowy effect that is showing here. So I'm gonna shift it in, and I'm gonna smooth it out just a little bit. I might feather it a pixel. I'm gonna just one, and I might add some contrast. Oh, yes, I know you want a 1 pixel, and yeah, we might add some contrast. Okay. Now I'm going to double click the hand so I see everything full screen again. And then I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to move this over in the upper right hand corner because that's where I'm going to want it. I want to leave plenty of room for my quote. The other thing we're going to add to this little web graphic is a colored border that's transparent around the edge. So to do that, we need another layer. We don't need to add the border on this layer or on the background layer. We need a layer all its own on the very top so that we can make it a color, and then we can make it transparent so we can kind of see through it. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the layers palette. I'm going to click the button that says create a new layer, and it creates a new layer right above the purple flower layer. And I'm going to use something called stroke. So under the edit menu, we're going to stroke this box with a color. So I'm going to go up here. First, I have to have something selected. So I'm going to select all. All the area of this new layer is selected because it's got the marching ants on the very outside. I'm going to go to Edit, Stroke. And here I've got a lot of options. I know because I've already tried this. I wanted it to be about 75 pixels to the inside of the marching ants. The default, you'll see probably when you open yours, center will be picked. You need to click the inside for the location. Otherwise, if it's centered, you'll get about, what, 35, 37 and a half pixels. You get half the pixels on the inside of the marching ants and half of them on the outside, which you can't see. So you need to pick inside so that all 75 pixels will come inside the marching ants. Now the color, I don't want black, so I'm going to pick a color. When I click the color, I get a color picker. I can pick it here. I could try to match the purple that I like, or I could just move outside of the color picker and I get the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to choose this dark purple right up next to the middle of the flower center here. So I'm going to say OK. You can see that purple is there. So it's going to put a 75 pixel stroke of this color inside the marching ants at 100% opacity for right now. We'll adjust the transparency later. So I'm going to say OK. You can see it puts a nice big border around your image. Now, this layer, we can adjust its opacity here with the slider, or we can type in a transparency amount. I think about 50% would be good. You can do whatever you want, but I'm going to choose 50%. So now I've got a layer with a stroke, 50%. I've got my flower, and I've got the background. All I need to do is add my quote. I kind of want a little bit more. I'm going to deselect everything so that we get rid of the marching ants. I'm going to move back to the purple flower. I think I want to add a little drop shadow. You could do this if you want. It's just another little way to make things look dimensional. Under the effects menu at the bottom of the layers palette, you can add a layer style. So if I click that, you can't see it because it's outside of the recording area, but the very last option is drop shadow. What that will do is it adds a drop shadow as the light shining from whatever direction I turn this. I can make the light shine from the upper right hand corner down across the flower, and it makes the shadow appear below it. I can move that shadow wherever I want it. I can spread it out or not. I can make it big or small, sharp edge. Um, I can control how dark the shadow is. I don't want it very dark. I just want it to be noticeable but not overpowering. So I'm going to say okay. So now all I need is my quote. So I'm going to go and choose a typeface. I need something bold and heavy so that we can see it on this concrete. I'm going to choose um, a type tool. I'm going to get my type tool because I'm just going to type it out here on the in the middle of the image. I need to see, what type I could use. This is very hard to see. It's pretty small. If you have a problem seeing it like I do, you can go back here to your type and say font preview size, and you could use it large, extra large, or huge. We'll just go large and see how large that is. That's better. I think I might even go extra large so I can really see what I'm getting. There we go. So I'm going to use something that you all probably have on your machine, which is probably Impact or something like that that's really heavy. Let's see. I've got tons of fonts. Hottenschweiler. That looks good. I want to make that all caps, and I'm going to type my font, or I'm going to type my quote. Wild, all caps. Wild flowers grow. I'm going to return and say where they will. Okay. I'm going to highlight that text, and I'm going to change the color of that text over here to white. I could do it here and then click that little square, or I could go over here with the eyedropper tool and grab the white. So there we go. Wild flowers grow where they will. So I can move that wherever I want it to be. I could transform that. Control T puts handles around it to where I could grab it and make it bigger or smaller, or angle it, whatever I want to do. I'm gonna angle it a little bit. Oops, sorry. I wanna hold down the Shift key while I do that. Keep it all proportional. There we go. I'm gonna say OK. Now you can also, with that type tool on this layer, I can use edit, transform, free transform. That's why I use Control T. So now we're going to use a blending mode on this. I'm going to set the blending mode for overlay. I've already tried it, so I know that's what I want. Overlay at 100%. Oops, I put soft light. That's not what I want. I want overlay. So that it looks like, if I zoom in here, that it's been painted. We can see the concrete through the other layer of the text. Okay, so now with that done, we also need to have the name of the person who said the quote or made the quote. So I need another type layer. And I'm going to type in the name of my quote person. Her name was, where am I at? Rachel. Rachel Mellon. I can't do it. Rachel Mellon. Now, I don't really want that to be in this block font. I kind of want to make it look like maybe she's the one that wrote it. So I've got a really nice little script font here. I'm going to use that instead. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. Instead of a normal blending mode, I'm going to use overlay so we can kind of see it through. Now, you could also use filters on this. I've done that before where like make it look as though this was a little more blurry around the edges so it doesn't look quite so stark, sharp edges. But I'm not going to do that for this one today. So here we have the type, the quote, the author. We have the object that relates to it. We have the border around it. And then we're just going to save this off for a web graphic we're going to share. So let's do save as. And instead of a Photoshop document this time, you're going to go ahead and save it as a JPEG. And I'm going to just call it Mike Brown Graphic. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to save that as a level 8. We'll talk more about that later, but just save it as a level 8 baseline JPEG and say OK. And then, actually I should have done this before. I need to change the size of this. It's a little bit big for being displayed inside Blackboard. So instead of 1500 pixels, I want you to take it down to about 650 pixels. So say OK, and again, then you would do save as JPEG. There's mine, Mike Brown Graphic, save. Yes, I want to replace it. You'll do it right the first time, so because you saw me do it wrong. Now, if we want to see what that looks like at about 100% size, you can come down here to the lower left-hand corner and hit 100. And that's about how big it'll be when we see it on Blackboard. So that'll be in the next video. We'll upload this to Blackboard.